Order. Sir Elaine Saxby to move the motion.
I beg to move that this House has considered fiscal support for hospitality and tourism in coastal areas, and it is a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, Mrs Cummings. Today, I wish to highlight the vital role of hospitality in our coastal communities, such as my North Devon constituency, and the support the sector needs and deserves. I would like to thank UK Hospitality for their ongoing work and support in this area. I had the opportunity to bring Kate Nichols, the CEO of UK Hospitality, to North Devon last year to meet some of our fabulous hospitality businesses and hear their frustrations as well as their plans for the future. We visited businesses such as the Saunton Sands Hotel, the Carlton Hotel in Ilfracombe, the Georgian Dragon and SQ Bar and Restaurant in Braunton. Some of the challenges facing the sector are not always obvious, particularly in remote coastal locations. And hospitality venues extend so far beyond just pubs, hotels and restaurants, including holiday parks, music venues, bowling, children's play centres, bars and clubs, which contribute so much to all of our enjoyment of coastal areas and resorts, as well as the economy. I have been lobbying ministers for quite some time to continue to find solutions to ensure this vital part of North Devon's and so many other coastal economies continues to thrive. I would like to thank the Minister, who I know is a champion in this sector, for his ongoing patience and engagement in listening to my concerns and also my constituents, as the Minister visited Ilfracombe back in 2021 in his previous role as Minister for Tourism. We met with several business owners and discussed business rates, VAT thresholds and Ilfracombe's ambitions in hospitality. I am sure he recalls the unanimous voice of Ilfracombe's tourism sector to raise the £85,000 VAT threshold, which currently sees much of Ilfracombe, like so many coastal communities, close its doors when the businesses reach the threshold. When first elected, I naively thought it was just the seasonality, but as staycations came back into the vogue post-pandemic, we saw some businesses close mid-August as the threshold was reached. Indeed, a local accountant told me just last weekend that he advises all his hospitality businesses to remain below the threshold. At a time when we are looking for our economy to grow, why do we have a threshold that creates a cliff edge that does the exact opposite for the hospitality sector? In North Devon alone, we are home to nearly 2,500 hospitality venues, employing over 8,000 people and contributing over 400 million to our local economy. The hospitality sector's success is vital for economic prosperity and plays a crucial role in shaping the very essence of our community. Yet, despite the resilience inherent in the sector, recent years have presented unprecedented challenges, particularly in our coastal towns. The impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, coupled with the energy crisis and a labour market grappling with record vacancy levels, have stifled growth and pose significant threats to the sustainability of our hospitality businesses. But I also want to draw on the positives that have happened with all the challenges presented. The government has supported the sector substantially during the pandemic, not least in the furlough scheme, which continued even if hospitality venues were shut. Of course I would give way.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way and securing today's debate. She's making a barnstorming speech about Devon, which may even make me traipse slightly further north into Devon to her constituency to help out her industry. The hospitality and tourism industry in Devon, as we know, supports thousands of jobs. As chair of the all-party parliamentary group for hospitality and tourism, I want the government to build on its record that she's been describing of support for the industry in Devon and the UK. The Trade Association, UK Hospitality, she's already mentioned the CEO, Kate Nichols, has three asks of the Chancellor for this budget. First, implementing a 3% cap on the increase to the large property business rates multiplier. Second, introducing a cut to the lower rate of employers' NICs to 10%. And third, permanently, this is a big one, reducing the VAT rate on hospitality business to 12.5%. Does my honourable friend agree these measures would really help and provide a big boost for jobs and investment in her part of Devon and my part of Devon?
And I thank my honourable friend and neighbour for his contribution. It's as if we both speak to the same group when we're I agree entirely with his contribution, as I so often do, and I am very keen that Devon hospitality businesses right the way across and down the peninsula are able to benefit, and that the Minister will hear our asks this afternoon. But we cannot underestimate the pandemic's impact on businesses. The hospitality sector came out of COVID-19 heavily indebted. I hope the financial sector can look to what more can be done to support hospitality to repay their debts, which currently stand at £8 billion in bank debt and £2 billion of landlord debt. The pandemic harmed hospitality businesses and made their recovery much more difficult. Whilst I warmly welcomed the small business rate relief introduced in the autumn statement, which provided some support, up to two-thirds of hospitality businesses find themselves excluded. Not due to generating immense profits, but rather because they operate in larger premises in high footfall areas. Consequently, the impending 6.7% in business rates, along with skyrocketing wage costs, presents a daunting prospect for the survival of many businesses. I applaud the government's commitment to creating a higher wage economy. It is crucial to acknowledge the unique challenges faced by hospitality businesses, especially those based in coastal areas like my North Devon constituency, which are often small in scale, seasonal, and working to tight margins. These businesses anticipate a 17% increase in staffing costs from April, with 98% expressing concern how to manage the impact of the upcoming national living wage hike. Many of the businesses that should have benefited the most from the small business rate relief are actually facing wage rises in the hospitality sector that far exceed the business rate relief itself. We are already seeing hospitality businesses contracting their hours, reducing the number of staff they employ or the hours which they work. Far too many of our pubs are now open weekends only or cannot find chefs, and so having to have some nights without food service, reducing their profitability even further. The national living wage hike, whilst warmly welcomed by the hard-working teams that work across our hospitality businesses, is a headache for business owners, who frequently are earning significantly less than the national living wage themselves due to the extensive hours they work and relying on their ever-declining profitability to pay their wage. Far too many of our hospitality businesses are facing a crunch this April. Too many of the sums we do up here rely on a 35-hour working week. Hospitality is a 24/7 business. And in remote coastal areas with low unemployment, such as North Devon, many staff are much younger as well. And this increase in the national living wage is going to hit these businesses particularly hard. One of the key asks today is to cut the lower rate of employer national insurance contributions to 10% and consider increasing the threshold to share the burden of this policy between business and government. But the biggest ask from my hospitality businesses across North Devon, and I had the pleasure of chatting with many landlords in some of the fabulous pubs back home during recess, was that their VAT burden is too high. VAT in the hospitality sector is significantly higher than elsewhere in Europe, placing us at a competitive disadvantage. During COVID, we saw huge success from the reduction in VAT for this sector. And during that time, 70% of businesses benefiting passed on the VAT cut to consumers to keep prices low. A hugely successful local pub shared their figures with me. With a turnover of just over £1 million, they are paying 25% in tax just in VAT and employment taxes. That's £250,000 to the Exchequer before they've even considered paying their bills, wages, supplies. Last year, we lost 3,000 hospitality venues in the UK, and I am concerned that if the government doesn't take further action to share the burden of this cost, we may lose even more this year. Unfortunately, I have one recent case in my North Devon constituency, Broomhill Estate, which is unfortunately closing due to its VAT costs. I want to thank Alex Kleiner for all his work and for letting me know how much of an impact a reduction in VAT from 20% to 15% would have made to his business. Hearing directly from a business owner, he said that there would have been three benefits: a reduction in absolute VAT, an impact on cash flow, and whilst harder to quantify, an uplift in footfall from more attractive pricing. He said, and I quote, 4 out of the past 7 quarters, a 5% VAT reduction would have completely offset my electricity bill. Unfortunately, in this instance, any changes to VAT will come too late for such an important landmark in North Devon. And whilst I know it is a big ask, I do hope the Treasury may again consider a reduction in the VAT rate for the hospitality and tourism sector to 12.5%, as this would help them to overcome the above-inflation increases in tax and national living wage, avoid further inflationary price spikes, and unlock investment. This measure aligns with international standards, stimulating tourism and offering domestic tourists a more affordable alternative to travelling abroad. I am confident that not every publican and hotelier is wrong in telling me this is the one measure that would help them the most. A cut, even a temporary one, would be a boost. For so many coastal communities, their tourism industry has changed since the hotels were built in the Victorian era, and many have large properties, which may not benefit from all year-round occupation, particularly in those communities where swathes of the tourist attractions, shops and restaurants have closed for the winter because of the VAT threshold issue. Hospitality businesses rely on space to host people and therefore have larger premises in high footfall areas. Businesses will often hit the upper rateable value band at a far lower turnover or profitability than other businesses. The hospitality sector pays 2.5% of turnover on business rates, which is 10 times that of banks and insurers. I hope the Treasury is looking at the introduction of a cap on the increase in the large property business rates multiplier at 3% in England, aligning with the expected inflation rate in April. And additionally, I hope the devolved administrations in Scotland and Wales to pass on the benefits of this relief in full.
I thank my friend for, first of all, securing the debate, but actually for her very compelling fiscal case that she's putting forward for the reforms that, quite frankly, are essential. I think we've been in this chamber previously in recent weeks talking about the same thing. In addition to fiscal measures, does she agree that we need supply-side reforms for coastal communities? Because many of our constituents in coastal communities do feel isolated. She's spoken about labour market shortages. We need to make sure that we've got public services, NHS doctors, education, employment, banking facilities in these communities to serve the purpose to actually make them healthy and thriving, and therefore increase the footfall for the hospitality trade, but also the employment market for hospitality too.
I thank my right honourable friend for her intervention, and I could not agree with her more. And that there is many asks that we could put for our coastal communities, but I have spared the Minister the rest of mine this afternoon. But I agree entirely with the points that were made. Because whilst I am here, I thought it might be remiss not to mention alcohol duty. The freeze on alcohol duty at the autumn statement was welcome, but this does not directly help our much-loved pubs. Pubs have reported significant price increases from brewers and other producers despite the freeze. A reduction in VAT would leave the choice to pass on and/or reinvest in the hands of the retailer, not with the multinational brewery in the case of alcohol. I have continuously campaigned to support the campaign for real ale, as it would play such a crucial role in stopping our many vibrant pubs and hospitality businesses from going under. Whatever the scheme, a reduction bringing us in line with the clear majority of our European neighbours, even permanently or temporary, would be a lifeline for our hospitality venues. And whilst talking about great pubs, I would like to take the opportunity to highlight the Belle Inn pub in Chittlehampton, as well as the Chittlehampton Village Shop, who serve excellent tea and cake, who are both finalists in the Countryside Alliance Awards, and voting is now open for anyone that would like to help them along. The potential of the hospitality sector to contribute to economic growth cannot be overstated. UK hospitality's economic evidence submitted to the Treasury outlines the conditions required for growth, estimating the creation of 500,000 new jobs by 2029 and an annual growth rate of up to 6%. I hope the Treasury will carefully examine the evidence and arguments presented, recognising the immense potential that the hospitality and tourism sector holds for the UK. By supporting this sector, we not only ensure the prosperity of businesses, but also contribute to increased tax revenues that fund essential public services. I am hugely reassured to see this particular Treasury Minister here today, who has been up to see us and understands so much more about our tourism and hospitality sector, particularly in remote coastal locations, such as my beautiful North Devon constituency, and I hope this may influence some of those critical budget decisions. Yeah.